Good morning, Year 1. I hope that you just read the book Are We There Yet? By Alison Lester on YouTube. That's a great book and it's wonderful to follow that family as they travel around Australia, seeing the different sites and places in our beautiful country. Alright, I'm going to show you on this globe whereabouts Australia is. Do you know the name of our planet? Our planet is one of many planets floating around in our solar system. In our solar system, we've got the sun, and then we've got lots of planets that revolve or circle around the sun. The planet we live on is the only planet that has humans on it because God has created our planet with humans on it to be the special planet in our solar system. It is called planet Earth, and planet Earth has lots of water and lots of land on it, and you can see that on a globe. This is a globe. A globe shows all the different countries on planet Earth and where they are. If I was looking for Australia, I would see this black line. This black line is called the equator. Can you say equator? I wonder if you're shaking because you already knew about the equator. Remember in Year 1 when we already know about something, instead of blurting and calling out when we're in the classroom, we shake. I hope you remember that for when we return to school later this year. So the equator is a line that basically cuts the planet in half running horizontal. So not running vertical, up to down, running across horizontal. Along the equator, the climate or the weather is very humid and warm. So think tropical plants, plants growing everywhere. When it rains, it's like a hot, sticky kind of rain. The temperature is quite warm. You probably, while you're walking, you feel like, oh, it's so hot and gross. I just want to jump in the swimming pool and refresh. As you go further and further away from the equator, whether that be going south, remember south is down to the South Pole, the icy cap at the very bottom of our Earth called the South Pole, or Antarctica, we also call that continent. Or maybe I'm going away from the equator, up, up, up. Up is north, do you remember that direction? Towards the North Pole, which is the icy cap at the top of our Earth. As I head away from the equator in either of those directions, the weather gets colder, 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 freezing! As I go towards the equator, it gets warmer, 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 hottest! So that's why we've got lots of tropical, humid countries if I follow the equator around in the middle, and lots of icy, cold countries at the top and bottom of our Earth. Australia is in what we call the southern hemisphere, which means the south half. Hemisphere means half a circle. Hemisphere. You know, a sphere is a 3D name for a circular, 3D circle, a circular shape. So hemisphere means half a sphere. So the southern hemisphere means the south half of the Earth, and there we find the country that we live in called Australia. You can see New Zealand here, and if you look closely, there's lots of little islands in the Pacific Ocean beside Australia. You can go on beautiful holidays to places like Fiji, Samoa, Tonga, on the islands out there. This orange bit though is our country Australia, which I've drawn up on the board. The dotted lines are our states. Australia is divided into sections that we call states. Do you remember the state that we live in, girls and boys? New South Wales, which is this state down here. NSW stands for New South Wales. This square here. The capital city is the biggest city inside that state, and ours is called Sydney. I wonder if you've been to Sydney and gone on a ferry under the harbour bridge, maybe seen a show at the Opera House, or maybe gone to the zoo, Taronga Zoo. We don't live in Sydney, although we live about an hour and a half in a car drive away from Sydney. So we live very close to our state's capital city. We live in a city though called Wollongong, which is just south, so underneath of Sydney. Here we go, Wollongong. Wollongong is in an area of New South Wales called the Illawarra. So you might hear those two words, Wollongong or the Illawarra, to refer to this place. that everyone in one red and one green lives and goes to school. Wollongong or the Illawarra, we can call it both. All right, today we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to look on Google Earth and we're going to see if we can find your home, and then you're going to take a screenshot of that and put it on Seesaw. That's going to be lots of fun. We're also going to be doing a bit of a mapping activity like we did last lesson where we drew Australia. Today we're going to draw our home, the city we live in, Wollongong, or the area, the region of the Illawarra. So you need to go and get a pencil and a piece of paper, and let's get drawing. Pause this video while you go and grab those things. Okay. You are drawing Wollongong. So at the top of your page, let's call it the Illawarra actually, because that's the whole area, and Wollongong's the main part in the region of the Illawarra. So let's write our title as the Illawarra. So if someone looks at your map, they know exactly what you've drawn. Can you write the word the with a capital T because it's a title? And in titles, our words have capital letters. T-H-E spells the. Or you could say that word, the. The next word I want you to spell is Illawarra. You need a capital I, double L, A, W, A, R, A. The Illawarra. Oops, double R. Even Mrs. Chapman makes spelling mistakes sometimes, but it's important to fix them up. Double R, A. We are always learning, aren't we, girls and boys? The Illawarra. Okay. If I was looking at a map of Australia, let's turn this around so Australia's showing. Here it is, down south, down the bottom, under the equator. If I was looking at a map of the Illawarra, it sits, or of Australia, the Illawarra sits with water on one side and the whole rest of Australia on the other. So if I go behind the mountains, you know our mountains in the Illawarra, I would be able to keep driving and walking over land for a very long time. In fact, I'd end up in Western Australia or Perth if I kept going. But if I go in the ocean, I'm straight into this big ocean called the Pacific Ocean, and I could swim for a very long time before I hit a continent called South America, would be the next land mass that I would get to. Or possibly I'd get to New Zealand in the middle actually, depending on where I swim. So you are going to draw kind of like the side of Australia, I guess. So it's going to go a line like that. Can you draw a line like that in your book? In here is going to be the mountains. Can you draw lots of mountains? Let's just draw like triangles for mountains. Later you might like to go and get some green textures or crayons or pencils and colour and draw lots of beautiful mountains in there before you post a photo of this to Seesaw. All right, if that's the mountains, over here on this side is going to be the sea. I'm going to draw some choppy waves. Maybe some seagulls flying in the air, and maybe a sun in the sky. Can you draw something to show me that on this side you've got mountains and on this side you've got the sea? Because the Illawarra is a region of land in between the mountains and the sea. We're very lucky we live in such a beautiful spot. All right, if you catch the train in Wollongong or in the Illawarra, it basically just goes up and down the coast, north or south, because we live in kind of like this strip of land in the middle. There is a lake. Let's draw our lake in. Can you draw a lake down the bottom? And it opens up to the ocean about there. So I'm going to draw some water that can come in and out of this area into my lake. This is called Lake Illawarra. Now, you can do the writing, you don't have to do the writing. Or maybe you'd like to go back and fill in the writing at the end of the video by pausing on my drawing and copying it in. I'm going to add the writing in for now, but you do not have to. I've got mountains, I've got sea, and I've got Lake Illawarra. They're some of the most important features of the Illawarra. Then the Illawarra is kind of divided up into, split into what we call suburbs, and you live in a suburb of the Illawarra. I'm going to draw a few of our suburbs on here, but when you go on Google Earth in a moment, you're going to be able to find your suburb, which I may or may not add, because it would take me a very long time to add all of the suburbs or sections that people can live in the Illawarra. Up the top, we've got a place called Stanwell Park. I wonder if you've been to Stanwell Tops or Stanwell Park. There's a sea cliff bridge up here that you can drive over and have beautiful views of the cliffs and mountains on one side and the sea on the other. All right, as I'm going down the coast, I've got like places. I've got Thirroul. I'm just going to say some of the names and maybe you're shaking going, I've heard of that place, or my grandma lives there, or I have a friend that lives in Thirroul. So you don't have to copy this, but just be thinking, have I heard of these suburbs? You might have Thirroul or Bulli. I know a few people who live in Bulli in our class. You might have Corrimal or Fairy Meadow. Mount Ousley, where Mrs. Topman lives. What other suburbs might I have? Wollongong is the main city part of our region. Mrs. Topman's mum and dad live in Wollongong, the city part. That's where there's the lighthouse, and there's Stewart Park, Beaton Park, the lagoon. We go shopping there, we see movies there, lots of things in Wollongong, the city part. Wynn Entertainment Centre Stadium, I wonder if you've been there. Chico's, very important to life in the Illawarra. After Wollongong, we have Cordo Heights. Remember, I'm not writing everywhere in. Cordo Heights, girls and boys, is where we go to school. Can you say Cordo Heights? Some of us also live there. Cordo Heights could be your school and your home. It's all of our school and some of our home. We've got Dapto, Berkeley. Am I saying some places maybe you know where you live? If I go past the lake or at the lake, I've got Wingdang, Shell Harbour, and I can even go further and further down to places like Kiama. Have you been to the Blowhole? Gerringong, there's a beautiful beach at Gerringong. Juroa, Mrs. Topman's done something called stand-up paddle boarding at Juroa. Lots of beautiful places in our region, the Illawarra. Okay. Kind of like the suburbs, Mrs. Topman's just written them in a list, but really they would look kind of a bit lumpy like this. You would divide up the whole Illawarra into all of these suburbs. I wonder if you live in one of the suburbs on my board, or maybe one that I didn't get to writing down. All right, Yuan, what I want you to do is go colour the mountains in, colour the sea in. I wonder what colour you would like to make the land. Have a little think. What colour would you like to represent this middle strip, the land? Colour it in, make sure you've got your heading, and then take a photo for Seesaw and post. You might like to also include a compass. Remember, a compass shows us our directions. So draw a cross, N at the top, S at the bottom, north and south, east, E for east, W for west. And a little rhyme we can do to remind us how to draw our compass is we can say, never eat soggy Weet-Bix. Never eat soggy Weet-Bix, girls and boys. I wonder if you've ever eaten soggy Weet-Bix. All right, take a photo of your map, post to Seesaw, and then your last activity for today, you are going to go on Google Earth, type in the suburb you live in. So for me, it would be Mount Ousley. For you, it might be Dapto or Berkeley. Take a screenshot and upload that onto Seesaw. So you're going to have 2 posts on Seesaw, your drawing and your screenshot of your house or your home or your neighborhood on Google Earth. You might even know your exact address, like 37 Humphreys Road, Dapto, and you could type that in Google Earth and get a really specific shot of exactly where you live. Then you can just have a little play around on Google Earth, maybe zoom out, maybe find Lake Illawarra, maybe find Stanwell Park, find some of these suburbs, have a look how the Illawarra is in between the mountains and the sea, and have a little play on Google Earth with your map skills. Have fun, girls and boys. I look forward to seeing those 2 things posted on Seesaw.